once you get that taste of the real, that flavorless flavor that is unmistakable, it's so real that you don't even have to worry about whether it's there or not, whether you can depend on it or not. You don't have to worry about whether it's in this category or that category, whether it's good or bad, whether it's socially endorsed or not, whether it's in some logical category of true or false. It's just more real than all of that. Largely because it's already just here, already the case. It's just that simple and obvious. When you get that taste, how to say this? Don't squander it. Now, that could be misinterpreted for sure, because we can try to use the old strategies in reference to it, which won't work. Clinging, grasping, controlling, understanding. It's not about any of that. It's not about any of those. It's an orientation. Maybe I could call it, in one sense, the feminine aspect. It's trust. It's submersion, immersion. It's letting it drip through your fingers. It's finding it in every situation, in every movement of life. It's a profound trust in life itself, in all appearances, the summation of appearances, and all of the emotion, the emotional cascade, and the distinct emotions, the sensation of emotion, the confusion that arises around emotion, the thoughts and movement of consciousness. It's just all of it. It's a love of all of it and an acceptance of all of it. Because none of that I'm describing, the textures of life, none of it is independent of this truth that you've realized, this something that you realized that's even beyond truth. It's found in every situation, in every segment of experience, in every texture of experience, such that you can fall in love with the most minuscule aspects. This could sound like you've heard this before, right? You've heard with mindfulness, like everything becomes more significant, more alive, and you can find it in the small things and the little things. And there's all these cliches about it, but they're really true. But to live that, to actually live it instead of in your thoughts, to live this, to where the sensation of the foot on the floor and the other foot on top of that foot is just as interesting or more than anything else that could be imagined. It's more interesting than anything could be imagined, but it's just as interesting, it's just as profound, it's just as salient, just as deep and juicy as anything that you think you need. Anything that you've been conditioned to believe is more important to you than something else, right? This always comes back to the whole specialness issue. We think we want specialness. We think we want to be special. We think we want to be able to navigate the world and orient toward that which is the most special to us, right? And all that. But we don't really want that, because that's just torture. That's living in the illusion of control. And you don't need that. You don't need that kind of control. You don't need it. You don't need specialness. You don't need anything once you've recognized this. And again, once you recognize it, don't squander it. Don't squander it means don't just go, purposely playing in the mind and purposely distracting yourself and getting lost down mind roads. Like, develop or cultivate some degree of trust in the ongoing unfolding, unbinding of all that you think you know about yourself and about the world, because that's what's going to happen. This that you've glimpsed, this that you've tasted, this that you've realized has never not been here, strangely, because of its ineffability, not because of it, but even though it's rather ineffable, even though you can't actually say, I can't give you a word for it, right? You either have tasted it or you haven't yet, and you will. I can't give you a word for it. It's not a thing in the way we think about things. It's not like some mental projection. It's nothing the mind can even touch. And yet that doesn't mean it's not important. That doesn't mean it doesn't have value. That doesn't mean that it's not salient. It's so profound. So what I'm getting at here is once you've tasted it, it's going to have a profound effect on your life. That unbinding process that begins there, essentially, truly begins there, will go on and on and on. And there will be things that you'll let go of that will feel really good to let go of. And there are going to be things that you let go of that really will not feel good to let go of. And either way, it's fine. One isn't better than the other or worse. It's just how it goes. There's going to still be something in there for a while trying to jockey for position with reality, trying to take a stance, trying to hold a view. But the ability to do that will get less and less. And the cost of doing it will get higher, meaning it will be more and more uncomfortable to try to do that. Which could sound really bad, like, you're up against this insurmountable thing. Well, don't try to surmount it. Surrender to this right here, right? And then as you turn your head, you stand up and move, surrender to that, and then that, and then that. Whether it's the color blue, whether it's a sensation, whether it's your hand on the pen as you sign your name, watching the pen stroke, each letter, the color of the ink being transferred to the paper, the pressure of your fingers on the pen. You can almost hear that pen moving across the paper. You can feel it. You can feel the sort of almost like grinding of that pen tip if you really pay attention. And as you're doing that, do you hear the sound, the ringing that's always here? Do you feel the breath moving? Do you notice your mouth? How does it feel? Is it tight? Is it dry? Is it wet? What does it feel like to swallow? Saliva? All of that. It's all here for you. Again, that may feel like not special, not important, not a big deal, not enlightenment. But when you stop making all those, not just making, but believing and acting out of all of those judgmental perceptions, let's say, which are just habits, once that stops happening, that's enlightenment. It's an ongoing unbinding. I'm not saying enlightenment is an ongoing unbinding. I'm saying the ongoing unbinding is definitely one aspect of liberation because it has to continue. I talked to someone today who has deep realization, has realized no self, teaches, works with people, gets tremendous results. People wake up all the time working with her. And she said to me, I appreciate something you told me once, and it still rings true, and that is always be alert for the formation of a view. And she said that's been very valuable. And it's valuable to me as well, by the way. Notice the tendency of the mind to formulate a view. I'm not talking about an opinion at the level of thought necessarily. I'm talking about the most fundamental movement of mind that's trying to structure an identity at all. And you'll with enough clarity, you'll get to the point where you can see it in real time. It's really cool, actually. It's interesting to watch the mind do that and see, is there any will there? Is there any will there? Even if there's no self there, even if the self structure has completely been dismantled altogether, which can happen, you can still feel that will. Maybe it's the energetic restlessness, the ninth fetter, maybe, depending on how you define the fetters, the rising up, the tendency to grasp onto something like an identity structure to stabilize. And of course, that's not there. So the question is, does it need to be there? That's the inquiry there. Do I need stability here? Do I need a view? What is the view that's being formed? And often at this stage of things, just seeing that the view is being formed will automatically dispel it very quickly. Not seeing it will be costly in some sense. It'll feel really off when it's like looking through a view, looking through a lens in some way. It feels off because you've already seen and realized there's no one that can do that. There's no dualistic mechanism that can allow that. So it's delusion, essentially. So delusion becomes really, delusion comes into sharp relief here, which is great, right? And yet there's always this unbinding, always, always, always. Unbinding, sort of non-grasping. And it's not exactly an act that you do so much as or a practice. It's something that you feel more like you participate in because it's already this. This is endlessly releasing. Appearances are endlessly releasing. There's nothing held. Nothing holds on. The endlessly releasing aspect I'm talking about is sort of built into appearance. And it's not even an actuality. It's a correction, like everything we talk about, every fixation that we talk about, every perceptual filter we talk about, every object of inquiry that we talk about. These are all provisional. These are corrections for fixation. When there's no fixation, no correction is needed. So the unbinding is something that's endlessly, if there's any tendency at all to grasp onto thoughts, narratives, views, it's endlessly available and unbinding and operating that unbinding. When there's no need to do that, when there is no grasping anymore, or for a period of time or whatever, then that view, that unbinding mechanism won't necessarily be found. It doesn't need to be found. So again, we're talking about very subtle things here, but all things being equal, let that unbinding hold your hand and just show you around, and you'll find that there's no better way to live than non-grasping, fully present, nothing but illumination, no one experiencing it, no one apart from it, no one reflecting on it. No one would run away from that. No one would trade that for anything else, especially the suffering that comes with thought.